within 48 hours, 12 hours, that's 24 hours right there, plus the 4 workouts. And each workout ended up with like a 30 to 45 minute cardio session. And all that's not too bad, but the cherry on top was What's up everyone, welcome back, Coach Powie here, and today we're going to discuss fat loss versus weight loss. So let's just jump right into it. So first of all, they both require a deficit, but weight loss, it doesn't really matter how big of a deficit you're in. It's more so you're just focused on getting the number down on the weight scale, which is very problematic because it gets very addicting and you just kind of have to go to one extreme after the other because you'll plateau at some point just to get that weight down. Like a few years ago when I thought I knew everything, I did the weight loss thing, whereas like the only thing that mattered was just get that number down on the scale. I remember there's 48-hour period especially where I did 2 12-hour shifts, right? And in those 12-hour shifts, I did 4 total workouts. So within 48 hours, 12 hours, that's 24 hours right there, plus the 4 workouts. And each workout ended up with like a 30 to 45 minute cardio session. And all that's not too bad, but the cherry on top was that I ended up only having one meal. And that was towards the latter half of that cut because it was just to the point where I couldn't do anything else but to pretty much starve myself and keep myself working out and keep working overall just to get that number down. And I landed at about 185. And at that point, I was like, there's nothing else I can do. It's just my metabolism is shot at that point, even though I'm like having 1,200 calories a day, and for the 48-hour window was only around 250 to like 300. It was just chicken and rice. That's it. So the end result ends up being completely different when you do the fat loss compared to the actual weight loss. Yes, you're still going to lose weight when you're doing a fat loss. It's a byproduct, of course, because you're losing body mass. So it does make sense. But the overall goal for the fat loss process is muscle preservation. So everything is secondary compared to the actual keeping muscle and losing fat. Is pretty much secondary, even though you are going to end up losing a little bit of muscle because one, you're not feeding yourself as much and you're not in that anabolic window. Like some people will end up gaining muscle, especially for newbies or just recomping, meaning they haven't worked out in a while. But most of the time you are going to end up losing weight, especially on the latter half of the cut because you're just not feeding yourself as much and your body fat percentage is quite low. So your body's not prioritizing that muscle building process. So the big change is when you're only prioritizing the scale, you're pretty much sacrificing every other unit of measurement in terms of tracking your progress, right? But when you're doing fat loss, the other measurements take a little bit more of a priority. So even though you might not be losing that number on the scale, right, you're seeing changes within your body in terms of the progress pictures you're taking. The first month or so, you won't see as much compared to comparing picture number 1 of the first month to picture number 3 from the third month and seeing the actual differences there because you're still keeping the size and also seeing the inches drop down. You'll see that in both, right? But it's more so you're looking at it in the perspective of you're not losing it too quick. You also take into account things like your sleep. If it's going to shit, like that's when you have to pull back a little bit. And there's things like energy levels. Everything will drop at a certain point, but it's not just this rapid thing where you're dropping like 5 to 10 pounds every week, and that's just completely unhealthy. So the difference isn't just necessarily your health or your protein intakes or your calorie intake or the deficit, but it's also the fact of the end result. So going back to that story of 3 to 4 years ago, I was 185 and it was just skin and bones, and that's what you end up doing because you end up losing all the muscle that you might have put on before, right? Even though you might have started back up again at a certain point, which happened with me, but there was still some muscle there, but you end up losing it all. And I was still stuck at 185. Lower weight doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing, but I woke up at 175 the other day and I look way bigger than I was at 185 because I'm actually carrying a lot more muscle this time around. And the difference, I mean, in the actual process of things is that you always have something in the arsenal to apply because you're going to plateau in both. There's going to be weeks where you don't see any progress at all, and that's when you pull things out of your arsenal and just start tricking those things in. Like you might just start off the cut with just cutting out like the pop and the liquid calories, and then right when you plateau off of that, you bring out the calories a little bit, or you increase your activity, and you just kind of keep playing that game when you're doing the fat loss phase. But when you're doing the weight loss, it's just strictly, okay, I'm just gonna go straight to 1500 or 1200, and when you plateau, and that's what I meant by you have to kind of almost have to do another extreme where, okay, you have to add another 50 minutes of cardio just so you can see that drop in the weight scale. And that's the reason why the end look is completely different, because your body's just not prioritizing the muscle building or keeping the muscle preservation, because one, you're not having enough calories, and two, you're not having enough protein, right? So those two things combined with the added fact that you're doing a lot of cardio, and this is where the whole myth of cardio kills the game come in, because people are prioritizing their weight loss over their fat loss. So that's where a whole outcome difference is, where someone who's prioritizing weight loss isn't going to get the same look as someone who's actually prioritizing fat loss, because their whole mentality is, I'm trying to keep as much muscle as possible the whole time through, where someone who's doing the weight loss thing, it doesn't really matter. They just want to get that number down. And that's not, one, the healthiest thing, but also you're not going to get that desirable look of like just looking lean and getting that six-pack look, because you're not carrying any muscle. If you're not carrying any muscle, abs are a type of muscle, right? So if you're not carrying any muscle, they're not going to show, because 185, this time around I did see the abs, but last time around it was just skin and bones, like I said before. So hopefully that helps you understand that fat loss is the way to go, because yes, it might be a longer process, but that's the picture in most people's mind when they think of losing weight, right? They attach the two. It's like, okay, someone lost 30 pounds and now they have six-pack abs. Yes, that's true, but their main priority was fat loss, and that's what it should be for you as well. So weight loss isn't necessarily a good thing, because it just kind of leads you down that rabbit hole of just being really, really extreme, and where you just have to really go to the extremes. Compared to fat loss, if you are trying to get shredded, you're still gonna have to go to the extremes. But if you're just trying to get lean, fat loss is the way to go, because you want to keep all your muscles. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Do all the liking, commenting, and subscribing stuff, and I'll see you guys next week.